Many people spend their entire lives waiting for someone to hand them permission to feel valuable. They wait for applause, recognition, validation, or a title from the outside world before they allow themselves to walk with dignity. But a crown is not something another person places on your head. A crown is invisible, and it is already within you. It is the birthright of every human being who learns to respect themselves, honor their life, and carry their existence with awareness. When I say recognize your inner crown, I am not speaking about arrogance or superiority. A crown is not a decoration for others to admire. It is a symbol of inner responsibility. To recognize it means to realize that your thoughts, words, and actions shape the way you live. It means you no longer walk through the world as if you are powerless, as if life is happening only to you. Instead, you walk as someone who chooses, someone who decides, someone who rules over their own mind before they seek to influence anything outside. Think of a queen. Her presence is not defined by the jewels on her head or the throne she sits upon. Her presence is defined by the way she carries herself when no one is watching. Her posture, her tone, her discipline, her silence, her grace. All of these are reflections of her inner state. Without the inner crown, the outer crown has no meaning. And so, when you begin to recognize your inner crown, you begin to see that you have always had access to self-respect, but perhaps you forgot. To forget your crown is to live small. It is to shrink in rooms where you should stand tall. It is to allow fear, doubt, and insecurity to guide you rather than dignity and clarity. When you forget your crown, you wait for approval, you compromise too much, you accept treatment that is less than you deserve. But the moment you remember your crown, your energy changes. You no longer beg for worthiness, you embody it. You no longer chase after people's recognition, you walk steadily and recognition comes naturally without needing to demand it. The crown is not just about confidence, it is about consciousness. It is the awareness that every decision you make is either lifting your head higher or lowering it. When you speak with integrity, you polish the crown. When you act with self-discipline, you strengthen it. When you hold boundaries and say no to what does not serve you, you protect it. But when you betray your own values, when you lower yourself to please others, when you abandon your own dignity, the crown begins to slip. Not because it has been taken away, but because you stopped holding it in place. This crown requires no audience. If you are alone in a quiet room, and you carry yourself with the same respect you would have if the whole world were watching, then you are living with the crown. If you make choices in private that align with the queen you know yourself to be, then you are strengthening your inner crown. But if your dignity only shows up when others are watching, if your self-respect only exists when someone praises you, then you are still living without the recognition of your own crown. You must learn to see yourself beyond the opinions of others. Imagine walking into a room filled with people. Some will admire you, some will misunderstand you, some will ignore you, and some will judge you. But if you are wearing your inner crown, none of these opinions can shake you, because you did not put it on for them. You put it on for yourself. You did not need their permission to feel valuable. You chose to carry that value within. When a queen enters her kingdom, she does not look to every citizen for reassurance that she is worthy of the throne. She does not ask, "Do you still believe in me?" She walks with calm certainty, because her authority comes not from their approval, but from the discipline she has cultivated within herself. In the same way, when you recognize your inner crown, you stop living for the shifting winds of people's opinions. You anchor yourself in something far more stable, self-respect. And self-respect is not loud. It does not need to shout. It does not need to prove. Self-respect is quiet but undeniable. When you carry yourself with respect, others feel it without you saying a word. They notice it in the way you pause before you speak. They notice it in the way you listen without rushing to interrupt. They notice it in the way you walk into a room without needing to dominate, yet somehow you command presence. This is the crown. This is the inner authority that cannot be bought, cannot be gifted, cannot be faked. But to wear it daily requires practice. It is easy to forget. The world will tempt you to trade your crown for temporary approval, to bow down in order to fit in, to silence your truth so you can be accepted. Each time you do this, the crown feels heavier, not lighter, because deep within, you know you have betrayed yourself. The crown was meant to be worn with steadiness, not placed down in moments of weakness. The more you practice self-respect, the lighter the crown becomes. It no longer feels like a weight, but like a natural extension of who you are. Recognizing your crown is also recognizing your responsibility. If you wear it, you cannot move through life unconsciously. You cannot waste your time in meaningless arguments, toxic relationships, or empty pursuits. You cannot allow yourself to live in constant distraction. A queen must choose her battles wisely, conserve her energy, and protect her peace. Otherwise, her kingdom falls into chaos. In the same way, when you recognize your crown, you learn that not every situation deserves your attention, not every insult requires a reaction, not every invitation deserves your yes. You begin to rule your time, your energy, your mind, as if they are precious lands under your care. To understand discipline is to understand the foundation of self-mastery. Many people confuse discipline with restriction, with the denial of pleasure, or with the suppression of desires. But in truth, discipline is not a punishment. It is the greatest act of self-respect. When you choose discipline, you choose to honor yourself. You choose to live not as a servant to your impulses, but as the ruler of your own mind and body. A queen does not allow her kingdom to fall into chaos because of neglect. In the same way, you cannot allow your own inner kingdom to be ruled by laziness, distraction, or uncontrolled emotions. Discipline is the throne upon which your true power sits. Think of your life as a vast territory, a land full of possibilities. Without structure, without order, the land becomes overgrown, wasted, and wild. Discipline is the boundary, the organization, the cultivation of this land. It is the way you choose what to plant and what to remove. Without discipline, weeds overrun the soil. With discipline, a garden blooms. A queen is not born with her kingdom already flourishing. She builds it, shapes it, and protects it through deliberate care. Your body, your mind, and your time are your kingdom. What you allow, what you encourage, and what you stop all reflect how you rule. Discipline begins in small, unseen places. It is not something dramatic or showy. It is often silent, private, and consistent. Rising at the time you promised yourself. Choosing the food that nourishes instead of the one that only comforts. Speaking words that heal instead of words that wound. Restraining the urge to react in anger when silence carries more strength. These are not grand moments, but they are royal acts. Because royalty is not measured by how many subjects bow before you, but by how much you can govern yourself without bowing to your weaker impulses. The truth is, without discipline, freedom becomes a trap. Many people think freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want. But that kind of living leads to emptiness and weakness. Real freedom is the ability to choose the higher path even when the lower one tempts you. Real freedom is having control over your time and energy instead of being controlled by distractions, cravings, or emotions. When a queen walks, she does not stumble aimlessly. Each step is measured, chosen, purposeful. Discipline gives you that same grace in your daily life. There is also a dignity that comes with discipline. When you practice it, you carry yourself differently. Others can feel it even if they cannot explain it. It is the quiet confidence of someone who knows they have command over themselves. It is the aura of a person who does not need to be told what to do because they already guide themselves with clarity. That kind of presence cannot be faked. It is cultivated day by day, in silence when no one is watching. A queen does not need to announce her authority. It radiates from her discipline. Discipline is not only about controlling your actions, but also your thoughts. If your mind wanders constantly, chasing every worry, every fear, every fleeting desire, then you are not ruling your kingdom. You are being ruled. The disciplined mind is like still water, calm, deep, and powerful. It does not get shaken by every wind or disturbed by every ripple. This is why meditation, stillness, and breath become tools of discipline. They teach you to return again and again to the present moment, to what matters most, instead of being lost in noise and chaos. A queen is not distracted when her people need her. In the same way, you must not be distracted when your own higher self calls for attention. Discipline also protects your energy. Just as a queen guards the gates of her palace, you must guard the entry points of your life. What do you consume daily? Not only in food, but in conversations, in media, in thoughts. Every choice feeds or drains your energy. Without discipline, you leave your gates wide open, letting anyone and anything enter. With discipline, you become selective, intentional, protective. You decide who enters, what stays, and what must be turned away. In this, you show respect not only for yourself, but for the sacredness of your time and spirit. And understand this discipline is not built in a single moment. It is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you recommit to every day, with every decision. That is why discipline is royalty. Because like a queen, you must show up daily to rule. If you neglect your throne, someone else will take it. If you neglect your habits, your impulses will rule you. If you neglect your inner order, chaos will spread across your kingdom. To wear the crown of discipline is to accept responsibility, not just for grand gestures, but for the smallest choices repeated consistently over time. When you realize that every act of discipline is an act of sovereignty, you begin to move differently. You wake up not because you have to, but because it is an honor to rise early and meet the day with readiness. You train your body not because you seek approval, but because strength is the armor of your royalty. You refine your speech not to impress others, but because your words are weapons or gifts, and a queen chooses carefully how she uses them. You make time for silence not because you are empty, but because silence is the chamber where wisdom whispers. When we speak about a kingdom, we imagine high walls, strong gates, and guards that protect what lies within. A kingdom without boundaries is a territory left open to invaders, to thieves, and to anyone who chooses to walk across it. In the same way, your life is your kingdom. Your mind, your time, your energy, your emotions, these are the treasures that belong to you. And if you do not define the limits of this kingdom, the world will define them for you. People will take as much as you allow, and situations will drain as much as you permit. Boundaries are not about keeping people away. They are about protecting what is sacred inside. A queen does not build walls because she hates the world, but because she understands the value of what she guards. When you begin to see yourself as someone who holds treasures worth protecting, your peace, your clarity, your dignity, then setting boundaries stops feeling like an act of rejection and begins to feel like an act of respect. Respect for yourself first, and respect for those who approach you, because you show them how to enter your life with honor. There are those who confuse kindness with availability and compassion with self-neglect. Many people grow up believing that to be good, to be accepted, or to be loved, they must always be open, always say yes, always give more. But a queen knows that endless giving without protection weakens her kingdom. If the gates are left open day and night, eventually there will be nothing left to give. Boundaries are the way you preserve your strength so that when you choose to give, it comes from fullness and not from exhaustion. Every time you say yes to something that does not align with your values, you are saying no to your own kingdom. Every time you allow someone to speak to you without respect, you are handing them permission to treat your throne like a chair in the marketplace. Boundaries define the way people treat you, but even more importantly, they define the way you treat yourself. To set a boundary is to declare, this is who I am, this is what I honor, this is the land I protect. Think of your energy as the soil of your kingdom. When you let anyone walk across it, the soil becomes barren, the ground loses its richness, and soon nothing can grow. But when you guard it carefully, when you allow only those who walk with care to enter, the soil remains fertile. Flowers can grow, fruit can flourish, and the land becomes a place of abundance. Your boundaries are not selfish, they are the reason growth is possible. People often fear boundaries because they fear rejection. They imagine that if they say no, they will lose the love, the approval, or the acceptance of others. But a queen does not beg for loyalty. She knows that those who truly belong in her kingdom will honor her rules, not break them. Boundaries do not push away the right people. They reveal who is truly meant to stand beside you. The ones who resist your boundaries are the ones who wanted your treasures without respecting your kingdom. The ones who honor your boundaries are the ones who see your worth clearly. Setting boundaries is not always comfortable. At times it feels like confrontation, at times it feels like isolation, at times it feels like you are standing alone. But understand this, a kingdom is not built overnight, and its walls are not raised without effort. It takes courage to define where your land begins and where it ends. It takes strength to say no when your habit has always been to say yes. It takes self-trust to believe that your peace is more valuable than the temporary approval of someone who does not respect you. There are different layers of boundaries. There are physical boundaries, protecting your body, your space, your health. There are emotional boundaries, not letting others project their anger, their fears, their doubts onto you. There are time boundaries, choosing where your hours go instead of letting them be stolen by distractions or by people who do not value them. There are mental boundaries, guarding the thoughts you allow to live in your mind, refusing to let negativity occupy the throne of your consciousness. Each of these boundaries works together to create the walls of your kingdom. Without them, you are exposed. With them, you are sovereign. A queen understands that to serve her people, to protect her land, and to lead with strength, she must first protect herself. When you guard your energy, you are not being selfish, you are being responsible. Because when your kingdom is strong, you can give shelter to others. When your walls are secure, you can open your gates with confidence. But if you neglect your boundaries, your kingdom falls and you have nothing left to share. Boundaries are also a mirror. They reflect how you see yourself. If you believe you are unworthy, you will allow others to walk across your life as if it has no value. If you believe you are royalty, you will guard your realm with quiet confidence. You will not need to explain or justify why you set the limits you do. A queen does not ask permission to rule her kingdom. She rules because she knows it is hers. And so the way you protect your time, the way you choose who enters your space, the way you decide what words you will accept and what actions you will refuse, this is not random. This is the architecture of your kingdom. Every boundary you set is another stone in the wall that defines who you are and what you stand for. Without those stones, the structure crumbles. With them, the kingdom rises majestic and unshakable, a reflection of the ruler who protects it. When people hear the word strength, most of the time their minds immediately go to images of force, aggression, dominance, and control. They think of raised voices, of the person who shouts the loudest, of the individual who intimidates or imposes their will over others. But strength, in its highest form, is not about who can overpower someone else, but about who can remain composed, elegant, and centered in the face of adversity. Grace is strength, and it is a strength that does not need to prove itself through noise, through conflict, or through resistance. Grace is the quiet force that moves mountains without announcing itself, that influences without demanding, that inspires without forcing. To embody grace is to walk with a presence that commands respect, not because you demand it, but because it radiates from the way you carry yourself. A queen does not chase validation, she does not scream for attention, and she does not crumble under pressure. Instead, she moves with a calmness that tells the world, I know who I am. That certainty is grace, and that certainty is also strength. For when you know who you are, you do not need to compete. You do not need to fight unnecessarily. You do not need to lose yourself in the chaos of the crowd. Grace shows itself most clearly not when things are going well, but when things fall apart. When you are challenged, tested, or provoked, you always have two choices: to react impulsively or to respond with dignity. A reactive person may lash out, argue, or try to hurt others to defend themselves. But the one who understands grace knows that such outbursts are not strength, they are weakness disguised as power. True strength is the ability to hold your ground without becoming consumed by anger, to remain calm when others expect you to explode, and to walk away with your peace intact rather than proving yourself right. This kind of restraint is not weakness. It is discipline, it is power, and it is mastery. Grace also has the ability to heal and transform. When you interact with others from a place of grace, you bring harmony to situations that could otherwise spiral into conflict. Think about a person who diffuses tension with a soft but steady presence, someone who doesn't argue louder, but instead speaks in a way that others naturally lean in to hear. That person may not raise their voice, yet their impact is far deeper than someone who shouts. Grace makes people feel seen, respected, and understood, and it is in that space that real influence happens. Force may win temporary battles, but grace wins loyalty, respect, and lasting influence. Strength through grace also means you do not let others control the rhythm of your inner world. In a chaotic environment, in a heated conversation, or in a moment of crisis, many people allow their emotions to dictate their behavior. They are pulled like a leaf in the wind, tossed by every external force. But the queen who understands grace remains steady, as though rooted to the earth itself. Her movements are intentional, her words carefully chosen, her demeanor unshaken. This does not mean she is passive. It means she is selective about where she invests her energy, and she knows that to waste it in trivial battles is beneath her. Grace is not about being fragile or submissive. It is about being so secure in your own identity that you do not need to engage in petty conflicts to prove your worth. It is about knowing your value so deeply that you never lower yourself to the level of insults, gossip, or arguments. It is about being strong enough to forgive without becoming a fool, compassionate without being exploited, and kind without losing boundaries. Grace is the balance between strength and softness, between firmness and gentleness, between silence and speech. It is the art of knowing when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to listen, when to step forward and when to step aside. Living with grace also transforms the way you experience yourself. When you choose grace, you release the constant need for external validation. You stop carrying the heavy armor of defensiveness and aggression. Instead, you stand tall with the lightness of someone who trusts their own path. That lightness is magnetic. People sense it in your presence. They sense it in your posture, in the way you enter a room, in the way you respond rather than react. Grace whispers that you have nothing to prove, and because you have nothing to prove, you become undeniable. Even in solitude, grace is strength. It is reflected in the way you carry yourself when no one is watching, in the way you discipline your thoughts, in the way you choose to honor yourself and your journey. Grace is not a mask you wear in front of others. It is a state of being that radiates naturally from within. And the more you cultivate it, the more it becomes your armor. Not the armor that hardens you, but the armor that makes you untouchable because external chaos cannot penetrate internal peace. Grace is strength because it is rooted in control, not of others, but of yourself. To master yourself is the highest form of power. Anyone can shout. Anyone can fight. Anyone can attempt to dominate. But not everyone can remain calm when insulted, compassionate when betrayed, or dignified when tempted to fall into negativity. That level of mastery requires inner strength, discipline, and wisdom. And once you embody that, you become unshakable, not because the world has grown kinder, but because you have grown stronger through the quiet force of grace. To lead by example is to understand that the most powerful influence you will ever have is not through words, but through the way you live your life. People may listen to what you say, but they will always believe what they see in your actions. A queen does not need to raise her voice to prove her authority because her presence itself communicates discipline, grace, and clarity. When you live in alignment with your values, you do not need to convince others to follow you. They will feel it, they will sense it, and they will naturally be drawn to your way of being. This is the essence of true leadership, to embody the very qualities you wish others to awaken within themselves. Leading by example begins with integrity. Integrity means that your words and your actions are not separate, that what you promise is what you live by, and that your choices reflect the principles you claim to believe in. When a leader says one thing but lives in contradiction to it, the respect of others dissolves quickly. But when a person consistently walks in alignment with their values, even if they never ask for recognition, people take notice. The world is filled with noise, with speeches, with advice, and with endless instructions about how life should be lived. Yet it is only the silent strength of example that truly has the power to inspire. A queen who leads by example does not need to declare her title. Her conduct reveals it without effort. She does not demand loyalty or force respect. These things are earned naturally when others see that her actions come from authenticity and wisdom. This type of leadership is quiet yet unshakable. It does not seek validation. It does not ask to be admired. It simply lives in such a way that admiration becomes inevitable. To embody what you ask of others is to remove hypocrisy from your life, and in doing so, you cultivate an environment where people can trust not only your guidance, but also your presence. Leading by example also requires responsibility for the energy you bring into every situation. If you walk into a room with anger, frustration, or bitterness, that energy becomes contagious. People may not always know why they feel uncomfortable, but they will sense the weight of your emotions. If you carry yourself with composure, with calmness, and with a spirit of patience, then others will naturally begin to mirror that same energy. A queen understands that her presence is not neutral. It either builds or it destroys. Therefore, she chooses to embody the discipline of self-mastery so that her presence uplifts rather than diminishes. Another dimension of leading by example is the courage to take responsibility before expecting others to do the same. Too often, people in positions of authority shift blame, excuse their mistakes, and point fingers when challenges arise. But the one who leads by example owns both success and failure with equal dignity. When a mistake is made, she acknowledges it openly, learns from it, and demonstrates that growth is not about perfection, but about humility and the willingness to evolve. This kind of leadership teaches more than any speech ever could. By taking responsibility, you show others that mistakes are not the end, but stepping stones toward wisdom. In addition, leading by example means living with consistency. It is not enough to show discipline only when it is convenient. The strength of leadership is tested in moments of difficulty, in times of temptation, and during periods of struggle. If you only embody your principles when life is easy, then you are not truly leading, you are simply performing. A queen does not perform, she embodies. Her consistency reveals that her values are not masks to be worn in public, but truths she carries in silence, even when no one is watching. This constancy creates trust, and trust is the foundation of influence. Without trust, leadership becomes hollow. With trust, leadership becomes timeless. There is also a profound humility in leading by example. It is not about proving superiority or elevating yourself above others. It is about showing the way with quiet confidence. True leaders do not stand at the front to be seen. They stand at the front to clear a path for others. They understand that their responsibility is not to dominate but to serve. In this sense, leadership is less about power and more about contribution. A queen who embodies this truth knows that her example is a gift, not a tool for control. She is not leading to inflate her own importance. She is leading so that others may rise with her. The example you set also becomes your legacy. Long after words are forgotten, people remember how you made them feel, how you conducted yourself in moments of challenge, and how you lived your life in alignment with your principles. Children learn from the example of their parents more than their instructions. Communities follow the conduct of their leaders more than their speeches. And generations are shaped not by what was said, but by what was consistently lived. Every day you live, you are writing a silent story with your actions, and that story has the power to guide others even when you are no longer present. To lead by example is to accept that the greatest transformation you can bring to the world begins within yourself. You cannot ask others to discipline their minds if your own mind is scattered. You cannot ask others to pursue truth if you are living in deception. You cannot ask others to act with honor if you are willing to compromise your own. Leadership is not about commanding, it is about embodying. It is about living the principles so fully that others are inspired not because you demanded it, but because your example awakened within them the desire to rise to the same standard. Chaos is not something that comes from the outside alone. It is not only the traffic in the streets, the noise of people shouting, or the unexpected challenges that arrive without warning. Chaos is also the constant stream of thoughts that run through your mind, the fears that race ahead of you into the future, the regrets that keep pulling you back into the past. Chaos is the storm of inner voices, each one pulling you in a different direction. And yet amid all this turbulence, there is a deeper reality that many never discover. Within you exists a place of absolute stillness. It is not destroyed by noise, it is not shaken by uncertainty, it is not moved by fear. To carry stillness amid chaos is not about escaping the world or hiding from its storms, but about learning to walk through the fire without letting it consume you. Most people believe peace will come once the outside world is arranged in the way they want. They wait for the job to be secure, the relationship to be perfect, the finances to be stable, the environment to be quiet. Only then, they say, will they be able to feel calm. But the world does not bend itself to your desires. The world is unpredictable, full of moving parts, forever shifting. If you tie your inner peace to outer conditions, then you are a prisoner of circumstances. The stillness I speak of is not dependent on perfection outside of you. It is cultivated within, like a flame that burns even when the wind is blowing, even when the night is cold. It is an anchor that holds you steady when everything around you is pulling you away. When storms arise, most people react immediately. They allow anger, frustration, or fear to dictate their behavior. They lash out, they collapse, they rush blindly. But reaction is the language of chaos. Stillness is the language of mastery. Stillness is not weakness, It is not passivity. It is the strength to pause before responding. It is the discipline to breathe deeply when the heart is racing. It is the awareness that you are not your anger, not your fear, not your stress. You are the witness of it. And when you learn to witness, instead of being dragged into the storm, you discover that chaos is nothing more than noise, and noise can be silenced within. Stillness must be practiced. Just as a musician trains every day to play a single note with purity, just as a martial artist repeats a movement thousands of times to make it second nature, so too must the mind be trained to return to stillness. Through meditation, through breath, through self-reflection, you create small spaces of silence within your daily life. At first, these moments seem fragile, easily broken. But over time, they grow stronger. Like the roots of a tree reaching deeper into the earth, your stillness becomes harder to shake. The winds of life may bend the branches, but they cannot uproot the tree. To carry stillness amid chaos is also to carry clarity. Imagine a lake whose surface is constantly disturbed by waves. Look into it and you cannot see your reflection. You cannot see what lies beneath. But when the water is calm, it becomes a mirror. In the same way, a restless mind cannot see truth. Decisions made in panic are clouded. Words spoken in anger are poisoned. Actions taken in fear often lead to regret. But when stillness is present, clarity follows. You begin to see situations as they truly are, not as your emotions distort them. You begin to act from wisdom, not from impulse. There will always be noise in the world. There will always be people who misunderstand you, obstacles that appear without warning, responsibilities that weigh heavily. You cannot control every wave, but you can control the boat. Carrying stillness amid chaos means steering with balance no matter how violent the waters become. It means refusing to be thrown off course by every unexpected storm. It means remembering that while the waves may roar, the ocean's depth is always silent. And you are not just the waves on the surface of life. You are also the depth beneath them. To walk with stillness is to walk with power. Others will feel it without you needing to speak. In a room full of noise, the one who remains calm draws the most respect. In a conflict where everyone is shouting, the one who speaks with steady clarity is heard the loudest. Stillness is magnetic because it is rare. People are searching for it, whether they know it or not. When you embody it, you become an anchor for others, a reminder that it is possible to live differently, to face life without constantly being torn apart by it. But stillness is not only for others, it is for yourself, for your own well-being, for your own balance. Chaos drains life, it steals energy, it clouds judgment. Stillness restores life, it replenishes energy, it sharpens vision. To carry stillness amid chaos is to protect your mind from being consumed, to protect your spirit from being scattered, to protect your heart from being broken by every passing storm. And this protection is not built on walls of resistance, but on the depth of acceptance. The stillness you carry is not about denying chaos, but about walking into it with open eyes and steady breath, knowing that the storm outside cannot destroy the silence within,